Welcome to this episode of the Harpreet Singh Show. The program aims to educate you, inform you, and inspire you every day, and that's why we bring different people over here who tell you about their lives so that we can get inspired. Today we'll talk to Mr. Jim Chu, who's the Chief Constable of Vancouver Police. Welcome to the program.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. So Mr. Chu, a little bit about yourself. Since when are you in Canada? What inspired you to come into police?
I came to Canada as an immigrant in 1962. I was 3 years old. And recently I found out that my family is one of 100 that were allowed to come to Canada from what they called Red China.
Okay.
But I first lived in Calgary, lived in Peterborough, and then have been in Vancouver since the age of 5. And in terms of being a police officer, I was always exposed to Vancouver police officers in the schools. When I was young in like grade 2, I remember the officers coming and talking about traffic safety and looking both ways before you cross the street. And then as I got older, I became a school safety patrol officer. So that program, we have volunteer kids in grade 6 and 7 that put a sign out to help kids cross the street in busy intersections. So I did that for 2 years, and I'm happy to say no one got hit by a car when I was doing it. So I thought maybe I'm cut out for a career in law enforcement.
Right. So where did you get your education from?
Well, I went to school in Vancouver at Charles Tupper Secondary. I also graduated from SFU as well as UBC.
Okay. And then because since your school days you were interested in coming into the police, and that's how you just started your career with Vancouver Police, or you did it from somewhere else?
When I finished high school, I went to university for a year, and then I was driving up to SFU, and I was kind of bored because it was raining and I got a lot of exams ahead of me. And I remember listening to the radio, and some person phoned up, and the chief was on the radio, Don Winterton at the time. He said, so the girl phoned up and said, how do I apply to be a Vancouver police officer? And he said, well, just go down to 312 Main Street and fill the form out.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'm skipping class today. Went down to 312 Main and filled the form out, and I got hired in May of 1979. So pretty soon, it's actually 6 days from now, it'll be my 35th year in policing.
Wow, that's great. So as you said, you were inspired to come into the law enforcement agencies. What about your family? If you can tell us a little bit about your personal life, also your wife and your children.
I have my wife, Vicky, is a retired Vancouver police officer. We met on the job. Okay. And we've raised 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Right.
And they are all adults now. My oldest daughter is a lawyer. Unfortunately, she works for a criminal defense lawyer firm, Peck and Company. Okay. But hey, she's doing her job. So yeah, we have good discussions about the law quite often.
Right. Now, let's talk a little bit about, you're the Chief Constable, and wherever we hear, there's the designation is the Chief of the Police or the Commissioner of Police. So why is this Chief Constable designation which is being followed over here?
Right. Across North America, you look at American cities or other Canadian cities, it's Chief of Police. But in British Columbia, we have a Police Act, and they designated the head of a municipal police agency Chief Constable. And I always joke that, well, that's because we're called British Columbia, because of course in Britain they're Chief Constables, and actually in the West Indies, the Bahamas, and other islands that have the British heritage, it's a Chief Constable.
Right.
For the RCMP, we have detachment commanders, and depending on how big they are, they have various sizes. Like I know Surrey is a chief superintendent, and then the head of the provincial police force is the deputy commissioner.
Right.
Yeah, so all sorts of different titles for us.
35 years is a long period in policing. So we would like to take you back into your career and let our viewers know, what do you feel, what have been your major achievements?
Well, it's a long career, and I always think back to different stages and what I was happy with. And I was a detective in the robbery squad, and we had some pretty high-profile cases, including some jewelry store robberies, including some sensitive investigations, including one guy that robbed or stole money from a very well-known charity. And the long investigation ended up with him confessing and him pleading guilty in court. So at that level, I was happy. As an inspector, as a middle manager, I worked on the Econ project, which is the 911 dispatch center in the region. and we brought in the new radio system, so police officers from Surrey, Burnaby, Vancouver could all talk with each other. And we brought a new computer system in called Prime, which allows us to share information.
Right.
So that's been very valuable for crime fighting. And as chief, one of the things I've been happy with the Vancouver Police Department is our high satisfaction ratings from our community.
Right.
And there's been drops in both violent crime and property crime. And I've got some amazing people I work with.
Right.
The credit goes to the frontline officers and the supervisors and the managers that help us achieve safety in the city of Vancouver.
Right. Now, like you have achieved a lot in this career of spanning 35 years, of course, through challenges, and especially this is a very stressful job. So if you can let us know something about the challenges also, whereas you talked about the achievements.
Well, there's always challenges because we don't have an infinite amount of money to spend. We have a budget, and I certainly understand the city saying to us, you need to stay within your budget allocation. Yet, on the other hand, we can't predict certain things that happen. So I'll give you an example, the pressures surrounding protests these days, the public order policing, those are budget pressures because we have to bring lots of officers out.
Right.
We had the pressures certainly during the Winter Olympics, and we had the pressures during the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2011. And those are big challenges because you always wish you could deploy more officers, you wish you could assign more to that investigation, but you only realize you have a fiscal constraint in terms of how much money you can spend.
Right. We'll continue with the discussion. Let's go for a small break, and when we come back about the challenges and what kind of policing now in future we are going to see, because situations are changing now. So we'll talk about that. एक छोटी सी ब्रेक लेने जी वापस आके मिस्टर जिम चू जोड़े के चीफ कांस्टेबल ने वैंकूवर पुलिस दे उन्होंने गलबात चलती रहेगी वेखते रहो द हरप्रीत सिंह शो. Once again, welcome back to the program. ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਵਾ ਰਹੇ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਜਿਮ ਚੂ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਚੀਫ ਕਾਂਸਟੇਬਲ ਨੇ ਵੈਂਕੂਵਰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਮੇਜਰ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟਸ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈ. ਆਓ ਅੱਜ ਕੁਝ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੁਲਿਸਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਸਟ੍ਰੈਸ ਲੈਵਲ ਨਾਲ ਨਿਪਟਦੇ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. So before the break, like you were talking about, the situation is changing and it's becoming unpredictable. So over the years, what kind of changes are you finding in policing? And especially as I asked you, it's a stressful job and a thankless job also. Despite doing the best many a times, people still claim that the police has not done much. So how do you see this, and how are you trying to bring that kind of confidence in your police officers also, so that despite the complaints or despite the always complaints coming forward, you are trying to keep the morale up?
Well, first of all, you said it's a thankless job, and I can say that we get lots of thanks. The officers, the appreciation we got after handling the Stanley Cup riot was amazing. People were sending cards, cookies, and people were going to coffee shops and buying the officers breakfast and lunch. Now, if you read the news media, sometimes you think it's thankless, but we actually get lots of thanks from people that we help. Lots of changes in policing, as I've mentioned, and I'm very in favor of outside investigations. For example, we have a new independent investigation office.
Right.
And they investigate police-involved shootings, serious cases. And I'm very in favor of that, even though I know my own officers or the RCMP can do a very good job investigating them, but the perception still remains. And so I noticed that yesterday the IIO, Mr. Rosenthal, recently concluded the case in terms of investigation, and the victim's family was still very, very unhappy, thinking the investigation was flawed. And I thought, okay, that's fine, but you can't get more independent than that agency.
Right. Some major challenges which are seen all across, especially the drug involvement and drug activities increasing. So how is the Vancouver police trying to cope up with this particular problem?
Well, the drug activity, and especially in the downtown east side, is very significant in Vancouver. And a lot of our property crime is driven by the drug-addicted offender. They're a crack cocaine addict. They have to steal, sell the property for money, and then go buy drugs. And we see that as a big problem in Vancouver. But over and above that is violent crime. The drug dealers fighting for the territory, fighting for the drug lines. And a few years ago, we came to the realization that just trying to show up at a scene of a homicide or a shooting and trying to solve it was not really going to be the answer. And the reason is a lot of times the victims don't want to cooperate with us, the witnesses don't want to cooperate.
Right.
Or if we investigate it and spend 6 months investigating it, the suspect's dead in a retaliation attack.
Right.
So we have analysts that will look, and we work very closely with the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, CFSCU, and the RCMP on who is likely to commit violent crime, who is likely to shoot others. And we will target those, especially violent ones, for proactive investigations, including surveillance, including getting them from any crime, whether it's dangerous driving or beating up their wife. Anything we can to get these dangerous offenders off the street is very important for us.
Absolutely, because I had a chance to go along with Cal Dusange, one of your police officers, into the downtown east side, and the kind of pressures you work through is really appreciable, because it's a tough job, but despite all those negativities which we find over there, you try to do your best, and you need the compliments for that. So as when you talk about the east side and gang violence, and especially the youth, so what is being done by the Vancouver police to outreach to the community so that issues, and especially the youngsters, I would say, because it's very easy to entice them into this kind of life. So what is being done by the Vancouver police?
I think investing in youth crime prevention is the best form of crime prevention. And we have school liaison officers that will work with the schools. And when we see kids that are problems, then we definitely will try to intervene in terms of getting the social workers, the teachers, and the police officers together on the same page. We've also helped sponsor programs, and one recent program was Eastside Aboriginal Space for Youth, which is for First Nations kids in the urban environment. Now, unfortunately, the funding ran out for that, but we are really actively trying to get the funding resurrected so we can get that program going again. And also we have a police athletic league program where we have officers, like you mentioned, Cal Dusange, organizing activities where the police officers get to interact with kids.
Right.
So that they say, hey, the police officers are just normal people, and the positive interactions we think really help, especially their respect for the criminal justice system and the laws of Canada.
Also, as far as the outreach is concerned, we find you at all the major occasions of all the communities. So what is the purpose of being there, and what advantage do you get by going there?
I really think it's important for the community not only to see us as policing them, but also see us as being part of the community. And so as an example, we had about 30 police officers out at the Vaisakhi Parade in Vancouver. And I look forward to that every year. Our pipe band, little Scottish culture, opens the parade.
Right.
And the officers that come with me, many of them came as little kids.
Right.
And now they're Vancouver police officers in uniform with their own kids and wives.
Right.
And so when the community sees a big contingent of officers like that, they say, wow, you know, they want to be part of the community. And it includes the Chinatown New Year's Parade, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Pride Parade.
Right. And as far as the future of policing is concerned in Vancouver, how are you trying to bring in some reforms so that you keep pace with the technological advancement as well as other new things which are coming forward?
Well, one of the new things that we're seeing is that whenever a crime occurs, there's lots of video evidence, and people have their own cameras on their phones. So especially with the riot investigation, we brought in a state-of-the-art video analysis lab that we are able to go through it. And as you saw from the Boston marathon bombing, having the ability to process video is a very important tool for law enforcement. In terms of information sharing, one of the things that Vancouver and the RCMP are working on, and other municipal police agencies, is a real-time crime information center. And this is an intelligence center that's, you know, in the US they call it fusion centers, but some sort of, or it is an analysis center that can give you information on all crimes occurring in the region. So officers hear about it and they can look for the suspect vehicles and they can react quickly if crimes occur.
And is the Vancouver police fully equipped to handle any unwarranted situation?
We expect the unexpected. We certainly handled the Winter Olympics, and we've handled the Stanley Cup riot in terms of the investigation of the suspects. Remember, that was only a 3-hour riot. We suppressed that in a very short period of time. And then once that was over, our goal was to identify as many people as possible and hold them accountable. Right now we've charged, recommended charges of 325 people. And there's more to come even, because we have the video evidence to go through, and the vast majority are pleading guilty as well.
We have you as an example of diversity existing in the Vancouver Police, but still, how are you trying to outreach to the communities also that the youngsters join the Vancouver Police?
We have this program called Student Challenge, and if you go to vpd.ca, you can see all our YouTube clips
Right.
on it. And that's a program to interest young people in policing. Once a month, we have an information session at
Right.
the Justice Institute. Again, if you go to our website, you can meet officers firsthand. One program we're bringing in right now is called the Community Safety Program,
Okay.
where we're hiring people at a younger age level.
Right.
And they're not going to have guns, but they will be peace officers.
Right.
They'll handle lower level types of issues. And that's a very diverse group.
Okay.
I think we've got like 15 languages, and people from the community of all backgrounds are
Right.
represented there.
And towards the end, Chief Constable, what would be your message to the viewers? How can they also play their role as a good citizen?
We believe in community policing, and it's not just the police alone. The community has to help us. I know in all policing jurisdictions we have volunteer programs, but we also need the police or the public to help us in
Right.
terms of crimes that are happening, give us tips, give us information, and be vigilant in your neighborhood. Like
Right.
join programs like Block Watch even. That can help us keep everybody's community safe.
Right. And before I let you go, how many more years in police and any political aspirations after that or before that?
I have no political aspirations, and I will be in policing a few more years.
Wonderful. It was a pleasure having you. Best wishes and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਜਿਮ ਚੂ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਚੀਫ ਕਾਂਸਟੇਬਲ ਹਨ ਵੈਂਕੂਵਰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈਏ ਤੇ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੁਲਿਸਿੰਗ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਇੱਕ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਚੰਗੇ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਨਿਭਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਵੀ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਰੋਲ ਚੰਗੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਿਭਾਈਏ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਮਾਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੰਗੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕੀਏ